I came home from work one night, and my room was gone. My posters, my clothes, everything. My parents said they sold it to pay for my brother's future. That was the night I learned I was never their priority. I left with nothing but a suitcase and a promise. One day, they'd regret what they did. And years later they did, because I bought the very house they once kicked me out of. If you've ever felt overlooked or replaced, don't scroll. Subscribe, because stories like this prove that being forgotten doesn't mean you stay that way. You know what's funny? I used to think love was automatic. That if you were born into a family, you were guaranteed a place in it. Like some kind of birthright. Like breathing. But I learned the hard way that love isn't oxygen. It's a choice. And my parents? They chose Cody. Every single time. Springfield, Illinois. That's where I grew up. Small suburban home with a dying maple tree in the front yard and neighbors who waved, but never really saw you. The kind of place where Friday night lights meant everything, and if you weren't under those lights, you were nowhere. And Cody? He was everywhere. Star quarterback. The golden child. The future of the family, as my mother loved to say, her voice dripping with pride every time his name left her lips.
Me?
I was Brooke, the older sister, the one who worked evenings at Rosie's Diner, slinging coffee and cleaning up after people who barely tipped. The one who quietly slipped $20 bills into the electric bill envelope because I heard my dad muttering about cutoff notices. The one who fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom at 2 a.m. because no one else would, and I couldn't stand the sound of water dripping like a countdown to something worse. I did it all just to feel seen. Just to matter. I remember this one dinner. God, it's burned into my brain like a scar. My mother was going on and on about Cody's latest game. 3 touchdowns, Frank. 3. The scouts were there. They were watching him. Our boy is going places. Her eyes were shining, practically glowing with pride. My father nodded, grinning like he'd won the lottery. That's my son, he said, clapping Cody on the shoulder. And I sat there, fork in hand, trying to find the right moment to tell them my news. I'd been accepted into a local art program. It wasn't Ivy League. It wasn't a full ride. But it was mine. I'd worked for it. Submitted my portfolio 3 times because I kept thinking it wasn't good enough. But they'd said yes. Someone had said yes to me. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice small but hopeful. I got into the art program. The one at the community center. They said my work was... That's nice, honey, my dad interrupted, not even looking up from his plate. But your brother's got real potential. Real potential. Those 2 words gutted me. Like everything I did, everything I was, didn't count as real. I smiled. I always smiled. I nodded and said, yeah, Cody's great. Because what else could I do? Scream? Cry? Beg them to see me? You don't have to be disowned to feel unwanted. Sometimes, love just forgets your name. That night, I lay in my bed, the bed that would soon disappear, and stared at the ceiling. I could hear Cody laughing downstairs, my parents still celebrating him. And I whispered to the dark, I'm here too. But the house didn't answer. It never did. Ever been the one who gave everything but got nothing back? Subscribe, because one day you'll have your turn. The for sale sign appeared on a midsummer evening, stuck into our dying front lawn like a gravestone. I stood at the end of the driveway, groceries in hand, staring at it like it was written in a language I didn't understand. We weren't moving. Nobody had said anything about moving. My heart started pounding, this sick, heavy thud in my chest that told me something was very, very wrong. I dropped the bags and ran inside. The house was too quiet. That's the first thing I noticed. No TV blaring. No Cody yelling at his video games. Just this horrible, suffocating silence. I walked down the hallway toward my room, and that's when I saw it, my door, wide open. It's never open. I always kept it closed because it was the only space that was mine. But when I stepped inside, my room was gone. Not messy. Not rearranged.
Gone.
My bed, the one I'd covered with blankets I'd bought myself, stripped bare and shoved into a corner. My posters, Fleetwood Mac, that stupid motivational cat hanging from a branch, ripped down, leaving torn corners and nail holes in the wall. My desk, my bookshelf, my clothes, everything. Just empty space and the ghost of what used to be my life. I stood there, frozen, my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Mom, my voice cracked. Mom, where's my stuff? She appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her face calm.
Too calm.
Like she'd rehearsed this. We had to rent your room, Brooke. I blinked. Rent what are you talking about? Cody's summer training in California, she said, like it was obvious. Like I should have known. Like this was reasonable. It's expensive. Very expensive. We needed the extra income, so we're renting your room out to a college student. She moves in next week. The world tilted. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. You're renting my room? Where am I supposed to sleep? She waved a hand, dismissive. You're 17, Brooke. You'll figure it out. There's the couch. Or maybe you can stay with a friend for a while. A friend. Like I had time for friends between work and keeping this house from falling apart. Mom, this is my home. And Cody is your brother, she snapped, her voice sharp now, defensive. He has a future. A real shot at something big. You should be supporting him, not making this harder. Supporting him. I'd been supporting him, supporting all of them, for years. And this was my reward. I found Cody in the kitchen, raiding the fridge, headphones in. I ripped one out. Did you know about this? He shrugged. Shrugged. Like my entire life being dismantled was an inconvenience to him. It's just for a few months, Brooke. You'll manage. You always do. You always do. That's the problem, isn't it? I always did. I always managed. I always bent and stretched and disappeared so everyone else could shine. And they got so used to it, they forgot I was even there. That night, I couldn't go inside. I couldn't look at that empty room or my mother's indifferent face or my father, who hadn't even bothered to come talk to me. So I grabbed a thin blanket from the linen closet and slept on the porch. The wood was hard and cold beneath me. I could hear crickets, the distant hum of traffic, the sound of my own heartbeat too loud in my ears. I looked up at the glowing windows of the house, my house, the place I'd grown up, and I felt like a stranger, like I'd already been erased. I whispered into the night, my voice broken and raw. I guess family isn't home. It's just whoever decides you're worth keeping. At dawn, I left, suitcase in hand, $23 in my pocket and nowhere to go. I didn't say goodbye. What's the point of goodbye when no one's watching you leave? If you think your family would never do this, think again. Subscribe before the next twist proves you wrong. Dallas, Texas. That's where the bus dropped me. I didn't choose it. It was just the farthest I could afford. I slept in shelters at first, the kind where you have to be in line by 4 p.m. or you lose your spot. I worked at a gas station, a laundromat, a fast food joint where the manager yelled at me for giving free fries to a homeless kid. I was fired for that. Worth it. I was exhausted. Bone deep, soul-crushing exhausted. But I was also free. And that freedom? It burned hotter than any anger I'd ever felt. I met Cal Thompson on a Tuesday. I was walking past his auto shop. Thornton's Auto Repair, faded sign, oil-stained concrete, when I saw a woman standing next to a stalled car, frustrated, near tears. The hood was up. Cal was scratching his head, muttering about a busted alternator and how he couldn't get to it until Thursday. "It's not the alternator," I said. They both looked at me like I'd spoken another language. "What?"
Cal said.
"It's not the alternator. It's the battery terminal. It's corroded. You can see it from here." I pointed. "Clean it off, tighten the connection, and it'll start right up." Cal stared at me, then at the engine, then back at me. "You know cars. My dad taught me." I lied.
Truth is, I taught myself.
YouTube, library books, trial and error in our driveway while my parents ignored me. Cal handed me a wrench. "Prove it." I did. 5 minutes later, the car started. The woman hugged me, tipped me $20, and drove off. Cal offered me a job on the spot. "Most people quit when they're broken," he said, lighting a cigarette. You rebuild." I worked for Cal for 3 years. I learned everything: engines, transmissions, electrical systems, customer service. I showed up early, stayed late, and treated every customer like they mattered. Single moms got free oil changes. Seniors got discounts. I remembered people's names, their kids' names, their problems. And slowly, painfully, I built something. Brooks Auto and Repair opened on a rainy Monday morning. My own shop. My name on the sign. I stood outside in the drizzle, staring at it, and I cried. Not sad tears, angry, triumphant, disbelieving tears. I'd done it. Without them. Without anyone. Life was good. Stable. I had regulars who brought me coffee and asked how I was doing. I had a small apartment with a bed, a real bed, and posters I'd chosen. I had a life that was mine. And then the envelope came. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in my mother's looping cursive. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside, a single line. "Your brother needs you. Please come home." My hands shook. The paper crumpled in my grip. I looked up at the Texas sunset, orange and red and bleeding across the sky, and I whispered, my voice full of venom and pain, "Why now?" She thought she'd escaped her past, but the truth always finds you. Subscribe so you don't miss what came next. Springfield looked smaller. Or maybe I'd just gotten bigger. I drove down familiar streets, past Rosie's Diner, still there, still depressing, and turned onto Maple Drive. My childhood home sat at the end, and God, it looked tired. The paint was peeling like dead skin. The lawn was brown and patchy. The maple tree was gone, just a stump left behind like an amputated limb. I parked in the driveway and sat there, engine off, hands gripping the wheel. I didn't want to go in. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn around, to leave them the way they left me. But I'm not them. That's the thing. I'm not them. I knocked. My mother opened the door, and for a second, I didn't recognize her. She'd aged. Deep lines around her mouth, gray streaking her hair, eyes that looked defeated. She gasped when she saw me. "Brooke." "Hi, Mom." She pulled me into a hug I didn't return. I stood there, stiff, my arms at my sides. She smelled like old perfume and desperation. Inside, the house was worse. Furniture faded and sagging. Boxes stacked in corners. My father sat in his recliner, older, thinner, smaller than I remembered. And Cody, God, Cody, sat in a wheelchair by the window. What happened? I asked, though I already knew. I Googled him. Car accident junior year of college. Spinal injury. Career over before it started. My mother's voice cracked. We've lost everything, Brooke. The medical bills, the mortgage, the bank's taking the house next week. She grabbed my hands, desperate. You're successful. We see your shop online. You're doing so well. Please, please help us. I looked at her, at my father, who couldn't meet my eyes, at Cody, who stared out the window like he wished he were anywhere else. I remembered the porch, the cold wood, the empty room, the suitcase. I'll think about it, I said softly. I walked toward the door. My heels clicked on the same steps I'd cried on all those years ago. My mother called after me. Brooke, please. I didn't turn around. Would you forgive them? Or let karma handle it? Comment forgive or never below. 2 months later, I got the call. The house had gone to auction.
Sold.
Cash buyer. My mother left me a voicemail, sobbing, begging me to reconsider helping them. I deleted it. I didn't tell them it was me. Why would I? They never told me when they sold my room. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday. I know because I was there when the sheriff delivered it. I watched from my truck as my mother opened the envelope, read it, and screamed. My father came running. They stood in the doorway, holding the paper like it was a death sentence. And maybe it was. I waited a week. Let it sink in. Let them panic and scramble and feel the weight of losing everything. Then I drove up in my clean white truck, parked in the driveway, and stepped out. My mother's face went white. Brooke, this can't be real. It's real, Mom. You bought our house? I looked at her, at the house, at the life they'd built on my back, and then kicked me out of. You sold my room to fund someone else's dream. I bought your house to rebuild mine. My father finally spoke, his voice shaking. How could you do this to us? I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was bitter and sharp and full of years of swallowed rage. How could I? How could you? I was 17. I was your daughter, and you threw me away like garbage. Cody wheeled himself to the door. Brooke, please. Don't. My voice was ice. You shrugged, Cody. You shrugged when they took everything from me. You said I'd manage. So manage this. I let them stay for 3 months, rent-free. I'm not a monster, but after that, they were gone. I didn't come back.
Didn't check on them.
Didn't send Christmas cards. I sold the house a year later to a young couple with a baby. I hope they fill it with love. I hope that kid never sleeps on the porch. Sometimes karma doesn't shout. It signs the title deed. Some say she went too far. Others call it justice. What do you think? Subscribe so you don't miss when stories like this return home.